I talked about this last week on the program, and essentially I was talking about patents and issues with patent law and how patents are stopping people from getting vaccines who really need them. You may have seen in the news that Joe Biden sent a bunch of vaccines to Mexico. There's a couple of interesting things about that piece of news that you may not have seen. One, the vaccines that are being sent are the AstraZeneca vaccines, which are not yet approved for use in the United States. Interesting that we're sending something that we don't think is safe enough for our citizens to citizens of another country. Not great. But also this is being lauded as like, oh, this is so heroic. Joe Biden, he's sending these vaccines to Mexico. It's great. But Joe Biden has not gotten us into the COVAX program. So COVAX, as I described last week on the program, is an effort by the United Nations to make sure that vaccines are equitably distributed so that we do not increase the international inequality, international wealth and income inequality even further by having things like vaccine passports and things like that, and limiting economic activity to countries where vaccines are prevalent. And all that's very important. And Joe Biden has not entered COVAX, but he is on the one hand giving all these vaccines to Mexico. And look, I do actually applaud him for giving the vaccines to Mexico. Apparently, these vaccines were just kind of sitting in our warehouses and going bad. And, Biden's response was, well, we know that Mexico approves these, so let's just send them there. They can have them. It's fine. But again, if we were part of COVAX, all the vaccines that are sitting in U.S. warehouses, they wouldn't necessarily go to Mexico. They'd go to a panel of people who would essentially decide where they're needed most, and then they'd go there. I mean, and by the way, that method, as opposed to giving vaccines to your friends, giving vaccines to those who need it, is a much more sound method for vaccine distribution than what we're doing now. So I'm very disappointed that there is kind of some heroism being lauded onto Biden right now about this vaccine transfer to Mexico, while no one's mentioning that he won't join COVAX, and that these vaccines could probably have been better used by the COVAX program. That aside, though, generally speaking, in vaccine distribution, the thing that's kind of interesting about the way that we're doing in the United States is there are essentially, so every health plan in America essentially gets some measure of leeway about how vaccines are distributed. And this is either through the providers that they fund, the state governments obviously are making some decisions. So essentially, at the very least, we have 50 different vaccine distribution organizations. Let's say 52 will count DC and Puerto Rico. 53 will count the VA. So we have at least 53 different vaccine distribution organizations. And by the way, each of them want more vaccines because they want to serve their constituencies best. And by the way, that is a wonderful thing. We want governments to want to serve their constituencies. The problem with this, of course, is the planning for the distribution of these vaccines is being done on many disparate levels without coordination. There is competition going on between states, richer states and poorer states, richer programs and poorer programs, about who gets vaccines and who doesn't get vaccines. And if we had a national system, a national health system, a Medicare for all system, or just totally nationalized health system like they have in the UK, we would have a much better time of distributing these vaccines, because there'd be one organization at the top essentially looking at the entire map of the United States and its outlying territories, and who lives where and who needs these vaccines the most, and distributing them that way. And this would allow for our vaccine distribution to go much more smoothly. We wouldn't have this issue with expiring vaccines like we had with the AstraZeneca vaccine, so that's a little different, as I mentioned earlier. But also, stories from around the country that have come in that are talking about when vaccines have when vaccines have been kind of getting close to getting bad. So, governments have panicked and just give them to whoever wants them. If we had a national distribution plan, we wouldn't have to worry so much about that, because we'd have people saying, okay, Jonestown, Ohio, right? Jonestown's in Ohio. Jonestown's Ohio needs 10,000 vaccines. Just making that up, I have no idea. But so the central government figure says, Jonestown, Ohio needs 10,000 vaccines. So let's send them 10,000 vaccines, right? Or 20,000. I guess we need two doses. Just turn this timer off because I'm going to run out of time anyway. So essentially, the reason that the United States is doing such a poor job of rolling out vaccines is because we are trying to centralize decision-making. We are not trying to centralize this decision-making in one entity. We are having decision-making going on in more than 50 entities, and this is causing competition, which is slowing down the rate of vaccine distribution, and it's ultimately hurting our effort to vaccinate Americans. I do just finally want to applaud Joe Biden for getting to 100,000 vaccinations within 58 days. He declared victory on that a couple days ago, and he actually did do it, so props to him. However, only 12% of the United States has been fully inoculated. So just something to keep in mind, and that's 12% of the entire population of 330 million people. The math on that is kind of hard. No, it's not. It's 36-ish million. So of the 100 million that he's vaccinated, only about 40 million of those are wholly vaccinated. So just some numbers to keep in your mind as we go forward with this. And again, congratulations to all those people who are vaccinated. Please go get vaccinated. The sooner we get vaccinated, the sooner we can return to normal. And quite frankly, I would like to spend 4th of July with my family, and I'm sure you'd like it to spend it with yours.